517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
This is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast, back for Season 3, Episode 2, and another episode that I have been meaning to do for so long here. I am very excited to have one of the oldest teams in competitive Squadrons on the podcast. Out of Gray Discord, TEMPEST Squadron. I basically got most of the team here. Guys, thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm just going to run through the list, and then before I pass it over kind of to a couple of the guys to tell some of the story. But just first of all, let's do an intro with everyone. At the top here, Lions, thank you for being on the podcast, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, buddy. Eck as well, buddy. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
E-Soda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Maticus Rex, of course, here as well.
Glad to be here.
Not Tom, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good. How you doing, buddy?
And finally, I was practicing it. Okay, I'm going to get it right. Valian, how are you?
Hello, happy to be here. And that was correct.
Yes, nailed it. Nailed it. And yeah, like I was saying, we're kind of just talking as the podcast started there. You know, you guys have been around for a long while. There's been a lot of growth, and the team has kind of, evolved over the last, more than a year, basically, of Squadron. So I kind of wanted, I wanted Eck and Matt, you guys are kind of the older members, to kind of talk about how the team started and kind of how it goes, and then you guys kind of lead it, and I'll jump in with questions, kind of. So why don't Eck and Matt, you guys start here?
Cool, yeah. So we kind of congealed as part of Gray in December of 2020, and I think at the time, like I barely knew anybody on the team when I got invited. Trev started the team, and I think for the most part we'd all just maybe played a few games with each other and in pickup groups and stuff. I don't even know. Eck, is that true for you too?
So mine was, once the game came out, I ended up on the Eckhart's Ladder server, the Discord, which brought me to the X2 Discord. And then X2 started to have some pickup groups. It was through there that I started playing with a bunch of players that were just kind of, it was very early in the game. And that's where I kind of found Trev. And that's through those pickup groups, Trev kind of got some steam, and he built what was called Danger Squadron. That was the earliest squadron that we had, and it was through Danger Squad that, Matt, I believe that you eventually became part of that squad.
Nope.
No, you weren't. So
No.
that was afterwards. But anyway, that's where Heller, that's where Jack, that's where myself, Trev, like very, very early members of the first Tempest were just migrated from Danger Squad.
Is Trev Chadwick? Would I remember that gamer tag? Is that the same person, or is that someone else who came after? Okay.
Those are two different guys. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Chad was another member that kind of jumped into early Tempest, and then Trev was our support for a while, but that it was kind of early Squadrons.
Didn't he start as a flex or a PK?
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah. I think our Cardinal was our first support, and then we had a 24-hour party zone, Chili Buttons, a few kind of older names who were kind of very prominent in like always in the queue at the start.
But I mean,
and then go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then you guys kind of had that team built, and you went into the first Cal Cup, and you guys had, I think you guys did pretty well in the first one, from what I remember.
Yeah. Well, funny story. We some people were getting busy, and a few players on the team weren't getting along with each other, and some of the rest of us weren't having that much fun because of some players not getting along with each other. And with the combination of those factors, someone just said, hey, why don't we, make this tournament our last hurrah, and we'll just quit after the tournament. And then I think we got either top 8 or top 4. I don't know. It was the winter minor, I think.
The first one, yeah.
And then we quit, and that was probably like the downest I've been in the entire pandemic. Just that week, man. Like I was like, crap. I had this thing. It was fun.
Yeah, because you just went from such like we just did plays this well, and then you're like, now this just dissolved. Yeah, that would be a total bummer.
Yeah. So I think it was almost like it felt coordinated. Everybody was like, well, not everybody, almost everybody was like, hey, what are you guys doing? You feel like maybe we could, I don't know, do one more competition or maybe more? And yeah, the rest is history. We've been active since then. That's the only reason we're not the oldest competitive team in Gray that's still going. It's because we quit for a week, and now Guac is older.
Yeah, just for a moment, you guys jumped out, and then Guac just jumped up and just got to like oldest credit for that reason. That's pretty funny. So, because then I remember too, I guess along the way, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, but I feel like maybe Isoto was the next one because you were on Spicy for a bit. So how did you make your way? Well, maybe I'm mistaken. I think he was the next one to join, right?
Yep.
There was a wave of us. I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk to it a little bit, but I can talk about the move here. Yeah, so myself and Chish were getting we were having some unrestfulness on Spicy, Jish a little bit more than me. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think I wanna keep going up, And I'm pretty good pals with Jish. And so it's like, well, if you know a team that's looking for 2 people, let me know." And so he reached out to, I can't remember what else he reached out to, but I know at the time Trev was retiring, and then I don't remember who else. You had another OBJ retire, maybe?
Chua.
Chua,
Okay.
of course, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was actually at the same time. So Tempest was looking for. I don't remember if Trev was like a sure thing, but he was thinking about it. But I know you guys were for sure. Remember, you guys were looking for OBJ players, and so that's also Lions came on at the same time actually. Me, Jish, and right? Did Lions come? Okay.
Well, not quite the same time. But Trev was thinking about retiring, and Chua had just retired, and then I just got a message from Jish. I think the week before I had invited him into Gray because a couple of us saw him solo queuing, and he played some games with us. And then it was like the next weekend he messaged me like, "Hey, do you guys have 2 spots?" And we had only publicized the 1 spot, and I kind of knew that Trev was at least thinking of retiring and possibly on his way out, and that felt like I don't know, fate, kismet, whatever.
And then,
but yeah, that's how me and Josh ended up. We did 1 practice, and I think everyone on either side was sold. So that's what happened there.
There was something because Jish didn't end up staying for that long. He ended up going on to CA Gold at a certain point there.
Yeah, he was there. He was with us for I think 6 weeks or something, a month, 6 weeks, somewhere in there. And then he got the invite from CA Gold, and unfortunately went to them and helped them be the monster that they were and now kind of are as HOD.
Well, one thing too is because like that cost you guys in that one season, I think, for the Cal Cup, but you guys also played so well that you were able to come back and still get into that final. So that was pretty impressive, right, to recover from that, which was unfortunate on the technicality to lose those points.
The points we lost, actually, it was because of cheese. We had needed a backup player, and then he was there, so we played him for 1 game, and we actually lost that game. And then we found out that because Cheese, the team, had earned an invite, we had to forfeit all of our points from the minor because we played him in one game in the major.
That's unfortunate. I didn't. I was totally mixed up there. Then I misremembered which person it was. But-
Yeah, I mean, it's a good memory for a weird / shitty thing in the life of Tempest.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do remember too, because Spicy, Spicy was a very strong team. I remember I felt like I didn't give them the credit too necessarily when I was doing the tier rankings that
I gave you some crap about that. Yeah, I remember.
I remember too when I was like, no, I'm nailing it. And then I was like, I remember there was one you guys like killed. I was like, yeah, I definitely got to bump them up when they got the next one. I remember feeling like I was like, yeah, I was wrong there.
Well, Spicy went from like not great to top 8 solidly in a very short period of time.
We had a run of like, I think it was like 3 back-to-back top 8/4s that went really well, and then we had an upsetting performance in Twin Suns, which was kind of the breaking point for me and Fish. So
yeah, and then I mean, so at some point there too, you were saying that it was a little bit later that I think Lions kind of came on to Tempest as well.
Yeah, so I came in really quite shortly after Usoda did. That was after Typhoon, which was the first squadron I played with in this game.
Of course,
just kind of imploded overnight.
Yeah, I mean,
suddenly, yeah,
that was an unfortunate. I mean, that team, yeah, that was a bummer. Because the community was so small at that point, there wasn't many teams, and Typhoon did seem to be kind of on the come up. There was a lot of success. It was just one kind of step back did hurt you guys. Sorry, maybe you want to speak to that more, or as much as you want to.
Well, it kind of left me in this position where I had suddenly to kind of find myself a new squad, and so I tried out with a bunch of different teams. Tried out with Baywatch, Tempest, and pretty much most of the teams I played at least a few games with.
Yeah, I think we even maybe have tried. We maybe have tried to get you to play for Orange too. I think we did. Yeah,
I think Orange was the one squadron that I think I spoke to Nathan about it after, and he was saying that you guys didn't realize I was looking.
Yeah, it was it. Yeah, we missed the boat. Yeah.
But after playing with like all the different teams that I did, I just found I gelled the best with Tempest. I really liked their attitude towards playing, and coming from Typhoon, which was incredibly sort of regimented, to be the word. People often compared Doyle to a drill sergeant. Tempest was a breath of fresh air and being a lot more informal, but they still had that kind of drive to improve, and kind of that they were very comfortable with discussing feedback, and it just seemed like a recipe for success. So even though I think Baywatch probably at the time, because they had a more stable roster, seemed like they might have been a surer bet. I think I saw more promise for myself and my relationship with the team in Tempest. So I came in for some games, and it was an awkward transition because I'm in the UK. Because I work shifts, I'm able to do a lot of kind of like late hours practices, but it was a bit difficult at first because it was hard for me to get on comms. So I had to have this whole jury rig set up where I could move my PC into another area of the house and get on. So it was all a bit kind of improvised and on the fly. But I had a really good time with the team. So I joined not long after Isoda did, and then I think we played in the fall split, and that was my first kind of comp experience with the team. And it's been a great time since then. I think everyone on the team gets on really well. There's only the 7 of us, and we're all really close knit. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up coming into the team.
And at the time we still had Chad playing and Heller, and they left over the next couple of months. We actually in season 3 of SCL was really tough for us because we were dealing basically the entire season with we were having trouble getting 5 people in a room at any time, much less the right roles and actual team members.
So I mean, you guys did pretty well that season as well. From what I remember, didn't you guys made the finals of that one? Am I mistaken? Or
yeah,
we did, but there was a lot of dropout that season as well. If you remember,
okay, that's true. Yeah, from looking back at it, and I mean, I think you guys were strong, but I think now as you've come to this final form, you guys have just had such a great season. Do you want you talk about the latest members who've joined actually now too?
Well, one thing that happened as we were dealing with those personnel issues is that we were having to pull people in for our practices just so we could get 5. And the people we could pull in were often people from Gray, and we had some people who played at some of the same times as us, and we got along with really well and just really gelled easily into the team. And they were all on other comp teams in Gray, and I don't know. I'll maybe let not Tom take
Sure.
part of.
Yeah. So yeah, like Matt said, with Tempest staffing shortages, yeah, I think Scribbler, Velian, and myself all subbed in for at least practice at some point. Scribbler and I were on another elite team, so we never subbed in comp matches. I know Velian did that. But yeah, that kind of the player shortage on Tempest kind of coincided with a little bit of internal strife in Guac, where Scribbler and I were some different things we wanted to get out of the game, and that's what the coinciding of that with the timing of Tempest is kind of what led Scribbler and myself to hop over. It's kind of funny. Soda mentioned Twin Suns is kind of the breaking point for Spicy, but that was kind of the making point for Guac. That was when Guac really started to hit its stride and start hitting top 8s. So we had a good period there until I think it was September when Scribbler and I joined. Was it end of September?
It
early
was
October?
leading
Cal
up
Cup
to
Champs.
Cal Cup Champs, yeah, which was we talked a lot
Beginning of
about
October. Yeah.
about how what's going to be the best bet for everyone, and a lot like Tom said, there was a lot of internal stuff of figuring out what everyone kind of wanted to get out of the game,
and like you don't want to just go to your people who are in your same organization, be like, hey, why don't you leave your comp team and kind of take away your resources that you're providing for them and just come over to us. But as teams evolve, like some people who get along really well together even aren't necessarily sharing the same philosophies going into comp.
It's kind of I mean, I see that too. Like for Orange Squadron, like we play with a lot of the Australians, so those guys have kind of come over with us too, just because the same thing, right? Like I think the Sinisters weren't looking to compete in 5s at the same point at that time, so maybe Hobbs and Cinder kind of played with us that way. So I told it's just the way that kind of the game does flow with people too when they're just just finding their place. So I totally can understand what you're saying there. It's just especially because I mean everyone in Gray is so tight too. It seems like there's room for that to happen.
Yeah, especially and it's it's tough when you're some of your best friends. Like Matt mentioned when he thought Tempest had broke up, and that was what did you say the lowest point in the pandemic for you? When when Guac, I considered these guys to be some of my best friends, and there's definitely had some emotions attached to that.
Well, I hope everything's good now. I feel like I'm touching a nerve there.
Yeah, it's in a good place.
So
we all landed up on mutual terms.
Yeah, I mean everyone. Yeah, it seems like it worked out here. And then at some point too there for the season. Oh, sorry, I just cut you off. What were you gonna say, Matt?
Yeah, I was going the same place. Right after the Cal Cup finals, in between the season 3 and season 4 SCL, we picked up Velian on kind of a similar deal to picking up Not Tom and Scribbler from Guac. We picked him up from Helpworks, and the rest is kind of recent history.
I mean, I think like you guys kind of reached final form, and that's having this lineup together. I think over the last season, you guys, getting the opportunity to scrim against you guys, we learned a lot. Playing you guys, we learned a lot in those comp games. I mean, you guys are, I think, pushing the triple bomber meta. A lot of the just your speed on the. I mean, just yesterday, Matt, we were talking about I think it was with you, Matt. I was talking about the speed of the TIE bomber is just faster than the Y-wing, and you were like, no, I can do it the same. I was like, oh, well, I'm wrong. You know what I mean? You guys are on the forefront.
I don't know. That's not me. I think our Y-wings are way slower than our TIE bombers.
Oh, okay. So okay. I mean, you agree with me. So maybe it was someone else that I'm totally misremembering. But what has led you? What have you guys been doing over the last season to improve? What has your training been like? What do you guys chalk it up to?
Oh man, I could talk a little bit to it. It's hard to remember. Like recent memory is like scrambling, arguing, theory crafting about where we go with mods. But prior to that, like, you know, thinking back to our success in season 4, it was funny. I think Lions had spoke to this before in the one of the interviews we did, but like we came out that season undefeated, and everyone's like, "Oh, Tempest, the team to beat, untouchable." And you know, we worked really hard that season. We try and focus our practice efficiently. You know, like ladder is always a last resort for us. Was kind of the rule we set. We did a lot of internal drilling, and we also had because of my relationship with Jish. We ended up having a close relationship with CAG. That was actually, I mean, that was what I would attribute our best success, our best, like how we grew. Our practice times always lined up with CAG. And so every practice night before Calcup Finals, we practiced 3 nights a week, and it was like 3 nights of CAG scrims basically. Like, and so we learned so much from that. And then once CAG kind of went more casual, we still had them around. We jokingly gave them Tempest roles in Gray, and so we always had them as resources to pull from. Like, hey, like how do we improve this aspect? And you know, we get ideas for drills from night and bounce stuff back and forth with them. So I attribute a lot of it to honestly the drilling we did, and a lot of theory crafting, a lot of documentation, which is something I like to do. I don't do video content for Squadrons. I end up just writing all my thoughts in Google Docs, and so I did a lot of that as we got new players, and you know, that process of everyone understanding what every person should do. It gives you so much more transparency on what's going on in a phase and understanding. Like, you know, it's easy to be like, this phase feels slow, but when everyone understands everyone's role in, and that's another thing we've been continuing to work on, is we've been moving players around. I learned a little bit about farming. Some of our flexes have too, and that cross knowledge, understanding, you know, oh hey, like instead of being like farm slow, like getting the feedback from your farmers, understanding why it's slow, and you know, it's stuff like that that is really, honestly, I attribute a lot of our success to. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to it.
I think, you know, all of that is true, and none of it would be possible without some of the attitudes we're bringing to the table. Like, how many teams can scrim CAGs 3 nights a week for months and not want to kill themselves, just losing over and over? I mean, like, I know the answer because I've seen the complaints, and we could do it. And then all of a sudden we were taking occasional games, and then we were taking more than the occasional game, and then we were taking most of our Empire games, and then we were splitting consistently. And that is the story of us getting really good. It was beating our heads against the CAG's wall until it worked.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I think he made a good point about a lot of the theory crafting, which I think is probably why Tempest can lean slightly towards the theory crafting end of things. I mean, if you saw our internal Discord channels, it's just Bible's worth of discussion about how to optimize things and what players should be doing at any given point. And I think especially when me and he joined, it was a really good time and a really good process of like consolidation and growth as a team, where there was a lot of like individual engagement in that kind of team process, and I think that made, out of anything since I've been in the team, that's made the biggest difference. It's been that, and that's been an ongoing process. It's never stopped. It still happens now. You know, it's still a constant discussion about, well, maybe the B wing is going to be a faster way of getting the radar. Well, no, maybe if we do this and this, it's going to be quicker, and then yeah. So I think it's a combination of just being willing to do difficult scrims and ask questions and learn, and also kind of that same thing that I said about when I was trying out for different teams, that Tempest kind of resonated with me, was just their kind of willingness and eagerness to kind of take on feedback and learn and develop things and kind of grapple with that quite directly instead of just expecting it to happen passively, which I see a lot of people do, not just in Squadrons but just in life in general. You kind of look at, well, it's almost like learning an instrument. Just sitting there and playing it's not going to make you better. You have to like think about how to improve.
That's what I'm curious.
I'm rambling a little bit, but that's what I think kind of set us apart in some ways from teams that I've been on before, and not even in Squadrons, but just in general.
What was the drills? What kind of drills were you guys doing that you found helpful? I'm curious about that.
I mean, we do all kinds of stuff.
I mean, there are a lot of things, but probably one of the things that's made the biggest difference is opener drills. Just running your objective players on one side, running your flexes and support on the other side, and running those openers over and over, making sure people know where their packs are, what the best evasive route to the packs are, where the OBJs are going to be, where to catch them in their route, what pack they're going for, which OBJ is going for the double pack. I mean, I think very important.
Yeah, we call that hunter versus hunted is kind of what we call that one. Do you guys feel do you guys play through, or do you just reset it after that one? What do you think's better?
We reset. We've had different feelings about that. Sometimes it's really frustrating to reset over and over after 20 seconds of play, but Someone suggested making one paper so you can just finish it in like 5 seconds and let it restart rather than packing out. Something to consider there, because that is the element. It's like, which way do you go? Which way do you go? But just honestly, to just get the time just working those openers over and over, you're better to just, I think, restart the opening, just like you guys are saying.
Yeah. Another one too that was big that plays into what Lyons was saying about that feedback cycle is leading up to what was it? Leading up to the most recent SCL finals, CAG had been playing a little bit more, and they were kind enough to scrim us, and we just you take that break of not getting that level of practice you're used to, or just watching CAG play, because they're still great, obviously all great players. And it was funny coming in with the knowledge we had going out through the season. We're like, there's still so much more we can improve on. So a big one I did is it probably drove me more nuts than the flexes, but there was probably a week straight where I was anytime I was ready to play Squadron, so I was like, hey, I need 2 of you to come here and shoot at my Reaper. I need you to record it. I need to look at it. And so we even just the individual skill level, because having those eyes on and it was just I remember finally when we got the breakthrough with Ek of figuring out some of this stuff, is it was I was right after a work meeting and I was thinking about maybe I'll try this, and I had Ek record it, and it's that feedback and having teammates willing to do that tedious work with you of finding those small optimizations.
The thing that I find funny is that's so similar to Hobbs. Hobbs is, and you guys are some of the top support players, right? That I think everyone kind of considers that he has the exact same approach. That's very funny to kind of hear that he will watch people's perspective of him and have the same thing. That's very interesting how similar you guys are. Have you guys ever sat down and talked about support?
I haven't talked. I mean, we had Hobbs on for when I was out of town for season 3 finals, and
that's right.
I mean, I sat in the so we had to bring Hobbs in, and I do the shot calling for Tempest, and so I had to bring him in and be I've known for a long time that Hobbs is an incredible supporter, obviously on par with me. I would put us. Like you said, there's incredible support players. So when he said yes, I was thrilled. I was like, I did not have to worry about teaching this man anything about support. So yeah, spectating, watching, we chatted a little bit about some things, but we've never had a deep dive discussion. But
so what do you think is the most, like we're saying, your top support player, what do you think is the most important part playing support? We'll say not looking ahead to the future, but over the past season.
So this is actually something, again, and why I worked on my evasion ton. I've talked about this before, and that PK as a whole in the elite division players have gotten better. Obviously, we've been playing this game for a year and a half now. Obviously, people are going to get better. So I joke that, I used to rely on this myth of like, oh, you can't shoot a soda, and so people would never shoot me, and I got away with a lot because of that.
Mhm.
But people have gotten better. So I actually wrote a big giant document about kind of the advanced tactics of what I think about in support. So if you I will plug that a little bit. If you head over
Sure.
into Gray Squadron in the Reaper and Ewing section, there's a pin of a document where I talk about some of the aspects of support. But the biggest one by and large is your positioning and your situational awareness. But yeah, I mean, Hobbs obviously understands that
Mhm.
very well. And yeah, I mean, that's to me. If I said one thing, it's positioning. You can overcome like individual lacking in evasion by good positioning and smart game sense in that way.
I think Tempest, you guys have had so much success too, because not just having, top support, you guys have top objective and you have top flex players. And that's something what I think is really cool about Tempest is that you guys have been utilizing the Plasburst. I mean, for a while, like it was Scribbler now objective. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Do you want to talk about Plasburst and flex
I'd
play?
like Eck to talk about it.
Yeah, of course, Ack. You have
Plasburst
Plasburst
has
PK
had
forever.
a history. Yeah,
Yeah.
a history in Tempest.
Right. So Plasburst and Tempest started back in the days where we had Chadwick as one of our players, and he was a very enthusiastic player to begin with, but also very fond of his Plasburst. So Chadwick and I, we would play into ungodly hours in the morning.
Oh, I remember. I remember
right.
getting the two
Yeah.
stack PK two stacks.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I met you guys. I played with you when you were playing at freaking late night Pacific hours, even.
Yeah, that's
and you
right.
guys are
And
east.
I would wake up and these guys would be on.
we would still be
What
playing.
the hell?
And so I mean that, yeah, exactly that. Like Gray would be desolate for hours, except Chad and I in a room together, and just kind of playing, and we just became a good like dynamic duo in kind of the way that we would jump into things. And then we'd be like, okay, we can't really get a game. Let's jump into 1v1s and let's get, I'll be in a defender Plasburst, you be in an X-wing Plasburst, and then we'll just kind of fly around and try to get each other. Then we'll get some games and everything like that. Then we started running with the idea. It's just like we would excite each other with clips. He was a VR player, a VR Plasburst player. So anytime he would get a great kill, he would clip it and then send it, and then we would, hype each other up over it, right?
Yeah.
So the excitement builds, and then you're like, okay, what else can I do with Plasburst? What other sweet shit can I do with it? So we started he started developing maybe optimal pathing on an ISD attack or something like that.
Oh yeah, and he'd make these 3D models
Yes.
and like show the pathing around it. It was really neat and really helpful too.
Yeah, it's really helpful to just kind of get a glance on like, by convention, this is what I'm doing, so I know the direction I'm going and everything like that. So that was the early and like mid-level Plasburst within Tempest, and then that's something Scribbler, when he joined the team, he brought that with him. And I'm certain a lot of people now are familiar with Scribbler's Plasburst loops for a shield generator or on against a cruiser. That's just something that we, as a team, had been kind of accustomed to seeing. It's like Plasburst can work. We were in the process of optimizing good pathing and good direction to maximize the use of Plasburst. But it was around that time that Chad had stopped playing the game quite as much, and he took his leave. But the gap and the curiosities were always there.
Yeah.
In which Scribbler brought it in himself.
It was a funny thing to see too, because Chad still played when I joined, and Chad's biggest strength with the Plasburst was he was a monster at killing with it, like a really good PK player. And I was always, me and him would always go back and forth. I would harass him about, you got to crank a little bit more OBJ damage out of it. And then when we got Scribbler, he found those paths. So it was really funny to see it go full circle of like, we had this like notable PK pressure with the Plasburst, and now we have this like notable cap shift damage set up with it.
That's something that Hobbs, I mean, he's watched your guys' games a lot too, actually, and taken notes from it. And he would point out, and maybe Valiant, you want to speak to this too, that, you know, as a flex player, you guys, I mean, you're not, I don't think you're using a Plasburst, but you're getting even damage across the board as a team. So Valiant, what do you think about that? Like, as a non-Plasburst flex player, you're still getting all that damage in. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I haven't I Plasburst it's not really my thing. It's a lot harder for me to PK with it. So I still run Burst Protorp, and I'm getting the same damage, but as Plasburst, but with Proton Torp. So it's just less efficient in that way. But it's just to keep up with it, you really have to optimize everything and make sure you're getting as much time on target as you possibly can, and just that you're doing everything to the best of your ability.
No, but
also, I mean, it complements each other. Having one burst and one Plasburst player, they make up for each other's weaknesses, which is a great thing.
I mean, saves a resupply too. I mean, you're able to give Valiant enough torps and the Y-Wings, let's say, like, because, you know, if there's a burst over there, a Plasburst there, it doesn't need it because it's probably, you know, I think it helps out overall for that reason. And I mean, not Tom, Matt, Lions, you guys obviously have, I mean, you guys have so many options too with Scribbler too, that what you're gonna do. You're overwhelmed with bombers. How do you guys make decisions on who's gonna play it? Or, I mean, I've seen it kind of go many different ways. What's your thinking there, guys?
I mean, it depends. Sometimes just on availability, which is nice because you don't, you're not quite as constrained by like a really limited roster like we were back in kind of September time when it was a bit more of a struggle. So that's nice. And then it'll often depend on kind of map knowledge, and that helps because then you can, like, rather than try and get a broad knowledge of every faction with every map and every pack and all the pathing involved, etc., you can get really good with kind of a narrower kind of variety of it. So that's something we've been doing a bit more recently. Doesn't mean you don't learn the other ones, but it just allows you to kind of prioritize the timing of when you're going to learn things. So I think that's kind of how we're doing it. And what Matt and Tom think about that.
It's all in spreadsheets. And one of the spreadsheets is where we said how much we liked playing each side on each map, and that was the starting point. I mean, you know, we all have maps we hate and maps we love, and it's helpful to start there. But then, you know, there are maps nobody loves.
Who hates Nadiri the least?
All of a sudden I love Nadiri. Honestly, that, like, for the finals, like, warming up for it, I just felt like we had a strong Empire and NR game for it. So I was like, now I love Nadiri. All of a sudden I love Nadiri. I'm like, Galatan, these are my favorite maps out of nowhere. Like, what happened? Like, growing into the finals, but CL. Interesting. So you guys had this undefeated season, and we could talk about the finals, the game against the series against CA Blue. What do you guys think there? Because I was very impressed by CA Blue's play. I thought you guys, I thought you guys played amazing. What are your guys' thoughts on it there?
Yeah, I'll say something. I mean, they did play amazing. CA Blue is a team that's been improving constantly for months now. Like, they shot up, and they've never stopped working, I don't think. Their openers were, I think, some of the best we've run into in recent memory.
They blew my mind a little bit. We were talking about, like, 3 bombers, and I did not think that 2 bombers maybe be like, oh, I guess 2 bombers just can do it. I don't know. Like, I was like, wow. So sorry. I'll interrupt you. Go ahead.
They took 4 out of 5 openers, I think, against us.
Yeah, I think so. It was, and it was a funny thing too, because we had to adjust on the fly. I mean, I remember just, you know, we're going through the motions of an opener, and I'm like, mouth agape. I'm like, no one's died. Why did we just lose that opener? Like, what the hell just happened? And it goes back to that drill, I'm sure, on their end of, like we talked about, drilling openers. It's huge.
Yeah, and like, we drilled openers for some particular versions of success, and it wasn't all about speed for us because, you know, with the people we were scrimming, probably really until right before the finals, I think we scrimmed you guys, and you guys had apparently drilled quite a bit of speed.
Yeah, for sure.
We had not been drilling for, like, how many tenths of seconds can we shave off of this? And I know CA Blue doesn't think this is why they won those openers, but that was a big part of why they won those openers.
From my review, that's what I think that's what it comes down to. In probably with the extra flex player gives them more room to suppress your farm. So I think those two things kind of go together.
Yeah, how we adjusted though was I was like, guys, stop dump firing and sell out for your packs, and then that's what we did on Nadiri, and that gave us the extra bit of seconds to win that flip. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so do you think that was the crux for coming back in that series, that winning that opening and then getting ahead in those ones?
I mean, on Nadiri, that's huge.
Yeah.
We also switched. I think we'd been splitting Y-wings and started doubling mid-series. Is that what we did?
I think so. Yeah, that was the other factor.
Yeah, we just hadn't been getting the kills on their Y-wings, so we're like, okay, well, what can we do? We can guarantee one.
I mean, that was the adjustment. So then you go into the final against Baywatch. What was your thinking there? I mean, that's kind of what you probably thought was going to happen. How you had the advantage in strategy. What are your guys' thoughts about that series overall?
I mean, I think what lost it for us was losing just the first game. It put us on the back foot with the faction disadvantage. And we did. I think we played really well. I mean, like I said at the time in the post-game interview, I think they were the better team overall, for a variety of reasons that probably too lengthy to go into. But I think they were just slightly better overall, and because they took that first game off us, we're just on the back foot. We came really close.
Oh yeah,
we had the ISD down. It was 2 base races. One was down to like 4 or something like that. And I was really glad that we managed to take at least. I think there was some optimizations with our opening that we kind of made again on the fly, and that put us in a much better stead for the rest of the games. But because we lost that first one, it was just very difficult to recover from.
That was a bit of the opposite, though, too, with Cab, where Cab won 4 out of 5 openers. I think we won 3 out of 4 against Baywatch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the first one that we lost.
Yeah.
That's very interesting that it did kind of. I mean, so a lot of. I mean, we have talked all this season not internally, amongst the league talk chat has been that, openers define wins. It is kind of funny that it didn't necessarily come down to the openers wins in those 2 series, but when it mattered, it did, I guess, maybe is making the difference.
This also happened when we played Baywatch in Cal Cup Championships. They're just monsters at comebacks. I don't. It's wild.
I got a theory.
It's the optimization of their damage is just so good. They're like almost always getting double out of phases, even when you're cranking the farm as fast as you can, pressuring, getting that raider instantly. The damage optimization. It's important. You're looking at percent increases per player, 5% whatever optimization, but then you multiply that for all 4 of your players, and suddenly you're 20% faster.
Another factor.
I mean, if you think in the games that we lost, it was if you're under 10 on an ISD, you're talking about 3 or 4 seconds can win a game. So the losses that we did have after that first round, it was down to seconds. So to just back that up on E, it's just the optimizations make a huge difference.
Well, I feel like your guys' morale bar management too this season is something we took a lot of notes from, because you guys were doing a lot of push throughs to go to shields and stuff. What are your guys' thoughts about that, I guess?
That's a really dynamic conversation. And back on that document that I talked about of compiling strategies that needs updating. One day I'll get around to it when I'm done arguing about mods. But yeah, that was one that we actually took from Baywatch in the Cal Cup champs. We watched them roll through a lot of frigates to push the second one lower. And we were like, that makes a lot of sense. That can be a risky call sometimes, and you have to be really dynamic and decisive with that call, because like Lion said, seconds win or lose games that are that tight. And so I mean, that's the basic crux of it, is if we think we have enough morale management to do a sizable dent in the second one, and we wouldn't without it, then you go for a roll. But
yeah, and I guess the idea behind that is there are very limited numbers of phases in the vanilla game. So getting a double out of phase, probably if you've got 2 cruisers to go through, you've won the flip, or you've got 2 cruisers for them to go through. they're probably not going to get through them and kill your ISD in one go before you manage to flip it on them.
Mm-hmm.
So if it means you can get one out of phase, one killed, or you can get one killed and one really, really low, so it's easy to roll through for the ISD, that means you're in a much better position to take that flagship. So, I mean, it really depends on the match and the context, and you have to be, I think, as a team, very good at adjusting that plan, not having it as a fixed thing that you're always going to do. But I think there's definitely a time and a place for it. And I know it's a very contentious thing. Some teams think it's a terrible idea, some teams love it. So
I think
it's contextual.
When you see, I do think some of the top teams, like you guys, Baywatch, maybe in that series, that was the difference. When they lose games, they had very strong morale management. Maybe they made the right calls. I mean, those things you can make the wrong calls very easily. But I'm going back to CA Gold and Randos in that Cal Cup final. There was a lot of morale management that you could see being at the highest level, just optimizing time. So
that's one of the things I'm most interested in with beefier cap ships. We were noticing in our scrims and in the tournament. Was that just last weekend? I guess it was just last weekend.
Wow, it was. Feels longer, but yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it's a whole different game for morale management and the choices you're making there. And I'm interested in that because it's not that it was getting stale. I feel like we went through like 4 mini metas during the last season of SCL, at least.
There was shifts. There's options there. I agree. NR specifically, I guess people would say maybe a little bit in Empire too, but not as much, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we'll learn quite a bit about the game just from making the cap ships a bit thicker.
Yeah, we had a really interesting game with Baywatch in the tournament where we were playing our frigates like chess pieces. Like we were opting not to take or forcing them to take them to like set up for a stronger defense, because when your cap ship's beefier, it's more feasible to actually defend it. It's goddamn impossible to defend it in vanilla. It dies in 35 seconds. Like
So I guess that's kind of the future there. Tempest, you guys are got another season coming up. You guys are looking forward to the mods. You guys are, you're pushing the game forward. What are your guys' thoughts about the game in the future? What are you thinking there with the mods? I guess generally we can have a brief discussion. I know you guys got to go in a couple minutes here, so why don't we just kind of wrap it up with some positive thoughts about mods?
And... from Hell Thread to Hell Channel to Hell Podcast. The mod, I think there's a lot of potential in the mods. I think even within our team, there's people who feel differently about it. I think my main kind of thinking at the moment, with not a whole lot of time going into the next season that's coming up, is not to try and kind of go too far now, and maybe we should just kind of stay on the same order of magnitude that's been tested in the tournament, kind of within 10% of where they were in any particular parameter, and then kind of just settle on that. I think most of us kind of feel that most of the faction balance disparity comes from basically Y-Wings being too easy to kill, TIE bombers being too hard to kill is kind of the negative image of that. So that's kind of it for me. That's kind of more important than even the cap ship stuff. Cap ship stuff seems pretty unanimous, really. It's like no one really opposes it being tankier. It's not going to fundamentally change the game. It'll just make it longer.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's easy in the discussions to get bogged down at these percentiles and get into passionate discussions, but overall I'm excited. And the capship stuff really, really excites me just from what we saw in the tournament, even though there was some stuff I disliked with some of the Starfighter mods. I think there's minute enough changes you can make with Starfighter mods to balance things in that factor with, like Lion said, it all comes down to the freaking TIE bomber versus the Y-Wing and ease of killing there. But
finding the appropriate middle ground for those two things. I mean, it's there. Exactly. It just takes the time, and I know that I can get frustrated about it, but I am excited for that. It is keeping people interested and wanting to move forward with the all that stuff. I think long term it's good for the game and good for the leagues.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think another thing that I've noticed recently, which is a slight tangent from that, is it's really nice to see quite a lot of teams and players taking an active interest in kind of like fostering and encouraging players to start new teams up and helping them out. I think you guys are doing Mimosa.
We're trying, slowly, but you know what? That's another thing I should mention. You should please do mention that as well. Go ahead.
Well, for us, we've been working with Storm Chasers. We're going to be entering in the Open in the next season.
Possibly Challenger.
Possibly Challenger.
Possibly Challenger, yeah. And then there's Laser Rangers, and it's just a really nice place for the game to be at the moment. I think a lot of us kind of were worried that it might really tail off and get into a bit of a death spiral after the Cal Cup and anything but. It's doing really well. It's pretty much where it was. There's a few teams gone. There's a few new teams coming in. So I think the game is in a really good place. I'm really happy to see it. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, it's in the middle of this little renaissance as well as from the free weekend and the discounts, and more people are playing. I mean, hopefully you can keep that going.
Hopefully.
All right, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, sorry. So I just wanted to say, regardless of how players are going to feel about the mods, regardless of what side they're on, just to kind of echo what Lions and everyone's saying here at the end is, I personally thought this game was over in October. I thought Cal Cup was over and that was it, that everyone was going to drop the game, and it had been fun, but it was coming to an end. But here we are in February, and we're talking about the next season of SCL and maybe even the one afterwards. I'm over the moon that this game it's still alive and kicking. I'm glad that teams are coming in. I'm glad that competition is there. And the exciting thing about starting new teams is you get to kind of impart your knowledge of the game. And it's a very important thing to have the kind of resistance and maybe a bit of feedback from another team coming up, asking you why you do the things that you do. And you're like, well, we do it because of this, right? And it's just like to have that challenged as to why you do something. It's very important to solidify and remind yourself on why you're doing it. Be it why it's this particular tactic, or let's say, you find yourself higher in the tournament than you thought you would be. Now you're reminding yourself why you play this game, why you dedicate an entire day or an entire week into a tournament, and just why this game is as great as it is.
Well said.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Just a little funny story. Last week, I think, one of the players on Storm Chasers, Zero, who, it's probably one of the newest comp players, if not the newest comp player in the game, has been playing for like maybe 3 months now.
Oh yeah.
And she came up with a loadout, which I'm not going to reveal here because it's their secret sauce. And I'm like, that shouldn't work. And then I went through her logic for it, and I'm like, wait, does that work? And I'm still not 100% sure because it's kind of wild. But yeah, I mean, I think the logic sounds plausible at least.
Sensor
and,
inverter.
That kind of new thinking.
Let's
is
do
great.
it. That's really cool. Yeah, the new people coming to the game will only add new ideas to it. I mean, let JP be JP too. Don't let the oops strategies.
Yeah,
See turret.
I said it
Is it turret syndrome?
Yes.
Yeah, I said it in chat, but I'll say it here. Shouts out to Turret Syndrome.
So, you guys, why don't you plug any socials that you guys have here before we go? And yeah, let you guys be on your way because I know you got a scrim to do.
Socials. Just come to Gray Squadron. Come hang out. Check out Gravy Night Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern, and 3v3 Gravy on Monday nights at 10 Eastern.
Nice.
And I can't wait for someone who isn't me to throw a tournament again.
Apparently,
more tournaments,
Hopefully
please.
Something might be coming.
Doing one.
Who
but,
is?
Anything Cal Cup style would just be even if it was a one-off, would just be the best.
Like World Cup or
So there is talk. I heard from someone about that. So there might be something coming up. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
maybe.
Yeah. Ooh, excited. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on. Great to talk to you guys all here and go over everything. I will catch everybody next time on the Star Wars Squadrons podcast.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner scanner control.